This is the 90-Degree Show brought to you by the Marching Podcast. And now here's your host, the Phantom Podcaster himself, Joe Beard.
Welcome to the 90-Degree Show. I'm your host, Joe Beard, and happy to be of service for you. We appreciate all those listening through iTunes, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, our website, our blog, or wherever you are on the interwebs. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. This podcast is presented to you by Block Band Music and Publishing, The Edge One Productions, and Double Time Entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. We welcome you to the 2016 season of the 90-Degree Show. We are happy to talk another year about our beloved schools. Super excited to be broadcasting in our own studio and ready to introduce the new format to the show. We're not taking calls in accordance with Blog Talk Radio anymore. However, if you would like to be on the show to talk about the battle you attended, you're welcome to do so and be a part of our recording. In this podcast, we continue to talk about the granddaddy of classics, the Bayou Classic. But this time, we talk with Kelly Charles of Grambling State as she tells us what she thought about the performances. We talk about what we did during the Thanksgiving week, and we continue the talk acknowledging Dr. Deborah Saunders White, the chancellor at North Carolina Central that passed away. We send up prayers for her and also talk about women in leadership at historically black colleges. To recap from part one, our man Jared Carter Sr. wrote an article in HBCUdigest.com talking about, after the passing of Dr. White, what women are still in leadership positions at HBCUs. This is part two of this podcast where we hear from another educator and another member of Delta Sigma Theta. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog, blog4.themarchingpodcast.com. You're here with the Marching Podcast, here to talk about the Bayou, which is the outstanding matchup between Southern and Grambling. We have the one and only Miss Kelly Charles. How are you doing here in this podcast?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited about having you on. Love to have you on every time we talk about Grambling.
Actually, my bachelor's degree is in history from Grambling, and what a lot of people don't know, I'm sharing this. Right after I left Grambling, I enrolled at Southern University. I was accepted into their master's program in history. So my first master's degree is actually in history from Southern University.
Wow.
It was a really good program. I knew the head of the history department. My mother grew up, he's from a little small town near where I'm from Jeanneret. And my mother, like most mothers of kids who have, degrees in liberal arts, I switched my major from social studies education to history. And so my mother, when I did that during my sophomore year, she was like, what are you going to do with the liberal arts degree? You've got to get a master's degree. Right. So I grew up hearing that, like, you've got to get a master's. And so she kind of worked her magic and was like, well, you could go to Southern. They have a great master's program. And so I did. I enrolled. It was a great program, 2 really good years. But I think my professors and my classmates were always like, oh, she never lets us forget that she's a Grambling graduate. But the most important thing that happened while getting that master's degree, when it was time for me to start writing my thesis, my advisor, Dr. Lockett, who was the chair of the history department, he said, so what do you think you want to, write about? And so I said, I just have so many ideas. And so he said, well, Coach Eddie Robinson next year will be his last year. And I know how much you love Grambling and Coach Rob. I think it would be great to have a body of work around his legacy and his history and just the idea of someone from an HBCU, transcending so many odds. So I was so excited to be able to do my work and spend a year with Coach Robinson, traveling with him and getting interviews from folks during his final farewell tour. And so, yeah, the title of my thesis is The Life and Thoughts of Coach Eddie G. Robinson and its impact on Grambling State University.
Wow, that's really amazing. I always keep remembering him as the coach with the most Division I wins. But that would be a whole nother podcast if I started. If I would.
I know. Well, when you're ready to have that podcast, please call me, because I would be happy to talk about his legacy at Grambling, but not just that, what he made the Southwestern Athletic Conference into, and how he turned not just Grambling into a household name, but how he made it possible for the conference that we all love and respect and support gain notoriety during a time when it was almost unheard of for Black colleges and college coaches and football players.
And I think it was 11 national championships he had. Well, of course, they were considered Black national championships, as they were.
Sounds about right.
Right,
yeah.
Right. It's more than just 3 or 4.
Definitely.
Right.
Most definitely.
Right. You are like the epitome of the Bayou Classic then, just rolling around.
I like the idea of that. Yeah, I grew up on the Bayou Classic. My mom went to Grambling in the 1960s, and we grew up going to football games and supporting Grambling and supporting Coach Rob. So I was just excited when it was time for me to graduate from high school. I knew that I would be attending Grambling. I tell people all the time, I grew up on Grambling football, grew up on the World Fame. So having that experience was amazing. And attending Southern University, I would have to say that was a good experience. I had a really good experience there.
What did you do last week?
So I work in the school system. We were off Wednesday through Friday. And in addition to that, I'm also working on doctorate degrees. So I stayed in Houston and caught up on a lot of rest and did a lot of reading and worked on chapter 1 of my dissertation. And I watched, thank goodness for Facebook Live, I was able to watch the Battle of the Bands and the Greek show on Friday night via Facebook Live, which was really good. And not long afterwards, there was a much better copy of it floating around on the internet, so I was able to see the video a few hours later. And then the next day, like so many others, I was at home on Saturday, did some shopping Saturday morning, supporting small businesses. And then from there, I came home and I watched the game, and I was excited with the outcome. Let me say that.
Right, because it was like 52 to 29, 30, yeah,
like
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and it was the first time, or it was not the first time, but the first time in a while that both teams were undefeated in the conference. So you guys will be taking that. Was it SWAC West? Is that what you guys?
We are,
and taking that to the championship, and you'll be playing. Is it Alcorn for the championship?
We will be playing Alcorn, yes.
Okay. So that'll be exciting, and that'll be there in Houston. They're closer. Are you planning to go to the game?
I am planning on going to the game. That is the plan. There are a number of SWAC-related activities that are set to happen here in Houston. So I'm hoping to make a few of those as we come to the end of the semester. But I'm definitely planning on attending the game and spending some time with some of my favorite members of the World Fame Marching Band, in particular my god sister who plays the alto saxophone, Joasia Wilson, and she's also section leader. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with her while she's in the city, as well as cheering on the G-Men's victory.
What went on this past week, the chancellor at North Carolina Central Pass, it opened up, Deborah Saunders White was her name, and that opened up a discussion on HBCU Digest about Black women HBCU presidents. And apparently over some time, there have been a lot of firings for the female HBCU presidents. Now with the passing, we don't have any currently at the time. So I wanted to get your take on it, the female HBCU presidents, and now with the passing, we don't have any currently at the time. So I wanted to get your take on it because you are so profound and definitely educated being in history and geography. And now going with to be a doctor and potentially we may be having a podcast about you taking over Grambling one day. I wanted to ask you what you thought about the article, or what did you think about the actual happenings of the female presidents at the presidential level?
Well, I will say when I read the article, so many things came to mind. Just the first thing was that it wasn't shocking. None of it is shocking. And what's interesting is that when you look at the field of education, women, from being classroom teachers, and when we think about those who ascend to becoming principals, it's a lot easier for a woman to ascend to being an elementary principal. But when you begin to think about women, particularly Black women, who are interested in becoming superintendents of school districts, usually the way that you get into that is you should be a principal of a high school. That's usually one of the things that they look for. And then when you look at the number of women who are principals in high school, that number is really small compared to men. So we see it not just in higher education, but we also see it in the regular school system as well. And again, what's interesting about that is because when you think about teachers and when you think about professors, you do have a large number of women who start at that level. And it's just really hard because I think that there is this glass ceiling for women, and in particular for women of color. I just wonder so many things. I know when you're in leadership positions, particularly I was a high school principal, and one of the things that was always important was that you just don't have the mentoring opportunities because it's such a male-dominated area. Mm-hmm. And so mentoring and having someone to sort of sponsor you and really being able to say, oh, I know Kelly Charles, I know her work. You know, I know that there's an assistant superintendent's position coming available, or I know Dr. such and such, I know her work. I know that there's a chancellor position coming available. I think that she would be a really good fit. Those are the conversations that happen really when people are looking to climb the ladder. And if you don't have the right connection, if you don't have the right sponsorship, if you don't have the right people who are mentoring you in those areas, then it can really be hard. Like I said, I didn't find it to be shocking. Certainly sad, because being a Delta, I certainly know the work of Dr. Gwendolyn Boyd, and it made me wonder, like, what was the board's angle? What do they want? I also think that it's just really important to just really be specific with the board. Like, what are your expectations of me? And could you really be specific about that? Like, if it's fundraising, don't just tell me or tell them you should be out raising money, right? Give me some metrics. Tell me what my goals are. And in addition to that, where's my professional development and my training, and again, the mentoring to be able to make these very high metrics that you have for me? And with any job, I just think if that's not in place, then sometimes it can be difficult. And then you just add to that just age-old, man can do it better, or it's a man's place. That's the thought. I mean, come on. We saw some of that with the presidential election, that some people were just not ready to see a female president of the United States and of America. So I was really saddened, but again, I wasn't shocked, because so many things have to be in place in order for people to do really well, men and women. And I mean, let's just also put out there the politicking that comes with it too, stroking those relationships of board members. If you're not good at politics, then sometimes that can be the end of your career as well. And it's really sad. I've seen it happen time and time again.
When I look at it at face value, especially just being a guy, that's what I see as like fear, that it's going to be a female in a leadership position. I just did not think it sunk down to education and president of a university. I thought that it looked good if the president of your school was a woman.
Need to write music and drill? Get it on the field. Outfit your band. Keep your administrator happy and still have a life. Encountering drama in the process, ain't nobody got time for that. Let Block Band Music assist you with musical arrangements and drills to fit your band, and also the equipment, gear, and accessories to keep the visuals, music, and marching on point. Contact blockbandmusic@gmail.com and see how this worldwide minority-owned business can uplift your band.
Hi, this is Avery McFadden, Jackson State University graduate, Sonic Boom Trump Funk Found 1997. You are listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Hearing about Carolyn Myers in 2010, but I believe something happened with her. It just made me think about the article I saw, something happened with Alabama State. That is a lot in the span of 5 years. That's what jumped out with me in the article. That is a lot of action going on at these higher universities. And me, myself, I always equated it with being black, really, where it's very much the same thing, where we have to fight hard to get in college football positions or any position of authority. And then actually, too, it happens with women. So I guess if they stripped all color, if we were all the same, then we still looks like we would have this gender problem, which is just disappointing. I wanted to ask you then, have you ever thought that about Grambling Band? Because I talked to Bridget Bell from Morgan State in this podcast, and she brought that up because she talked about the article as well. She's a Delta as well. She said the same thing, where she notices the tradition about Southern University and their band being all boys, and then just being. Have you ever thought that about Southern's band?
Growing up, I remember at one point back in the 80s, I remember when it was pretty much an all-male band. And if memory serves me correctly, I remember in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, that it was a really big deal. And I can't remember the exact year, but I remember when they marched one or two female band members for the first time, and it was a really, really, really big deal. And just having a lot of friends who graduated from Southern and relatives who, though none of them were in the band, it was believed that Dr. Gregg, may he rest in peace, really preferred at one point an all-male band. Now, again, this is information coming from relatives and friends who attended Grambling. I can't say for sure if that was the case, if he really did feel that way, but it certainly did look like that on the surface. I don't know what their makeup is this year. I do know that over the years they've had more female band members, and it seems odd in 2016 that we're still having questions about gender relations and if it's appropriate or should we have girls in the band or things of that nature. But yeah, I do remember a time when Southern was predominantly male. What about when you were at Jackson State? Were they predominantly male back then? Southern's band?
Yes, and a lot of those of slang, if you will, or a lot of belief systems and a lot of terms were still there alive. And people explaining the tradition about Southern. And I was surprised because I didn't know the tradition of Southern like that, because my family was from Mississippi, so I knew more about Jackson State, but I didn't know that they didn't prefer girls at all. You know what I mean? And that actually was something that turned me off about going to Southern, where I was like, oh, it's all boys. I was like, oh no, like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to do that. So,
Right.
but yeah, that actually still surprised me. And I think that year in '97, there were a couple. I think there was two in the band. I think they both played flute or something, I believe, but not a lot.
Having only hearsay and going on what folks have said, people that I know who have attended Southern University, I was just having this conversation with a really good friend of mine who, she's much older than I am. We had this conversation a couple of months ago because I saw a video, and I think they always do a really good job. And I told her, I said, oh, I saw the video. I can't remember who Southern played. I said, and the dolls are just excellent, and they look really good. And so she said, yeah. She said, she said, they are. They're always really good. I asked her, I said, do you think that there's more of a getting to the mindset of having those that could be darker complexion? And she just sort of smiled, and she said, it's just traditionally, this is the way that it's always been. And so being someone who certainly loves and respects the traditions of HBCUs, and we create these traditions, and it's just certainly understanding and knowing the history of how these universities were created during the late 1800s and early 1900s, and just understanding the history of Louisiana and understanding age-old traditions of the brown paper bag test and things of that nature, and just how colorism has just been so integral as a part of Louisiana and Black history in Louisiana. Again, it's 2016, and we're still seeing those traditions that people may have thought that had a place back then. Light skin equals more attractive. Light skin equals closer to fill in the blank.
Right.
And just people having those ideas and back in the day, and then seeing that sometimes that still sort of continues to 2016. It can sort of make you wonder, like, what if there's a girl who is as dark as I am, and I mean, she's just like one of the best dancers in the state, and sure that this has happened, does she get eliminated because she's dark complexion? Does the fact that she may be classically trained in ballet and jazz and tap, and she's an amazing dancer, does that get overlooked at a Southern University? I don't know. I would hope not. Whereas at Grambling, people say the other thing, and I've heard so many horrible things being said about the Orchesis in comparison to them. Southern, the Dancing Dolls are light complexion, and at Grambling, they're dark complexion, and there will be discussion around that, be it whether if it's positive, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's just really negative. But then that also lets you see that in 2016, this idea of colorism still gets, in my opinion, just way more traction that I think that it needs.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So that was really good. So I want to ask you really quick about the Battle of the Bands, and I want to ask you about the halftime show. What did you think about the Battle of the Bands?
I told you this last year. I'm just always going to just really think that Grambling's band won, right? Or I read a lot of the comments, and at one point I actually had to turn the comments off because they were so negative, and there were a lot of people who were watching live via Facebook who didn't have an affiliation to either university. Many of them said, like, oh, I think this win goes to Grambling. They sound really good. They're really balanced. And then there were others who were like, Grambling can't crank, quote, and I'm doing air quotes, crank on Southern. Southern's going to, air quotes again, crank on Grambling. And I just think to myself, like, I don't think that Grambling's band has ever been one to, quote unquote, crank on Southern or anyone else. If there's a member of the world fame that's listening that, would say, well, that's not necessarily true, then, I'll stand corrected. But I always think that Grambling will always try to give you a sound that is adhered to the musical symbols. And when there's a need for a crescendo, I think we're going to do that, having been in band, understanding how music works. Songs that we played, the opening song, I always feel like we do a really good job of not recycling music from year to year. So I enjoyed hearing a few songs that I've heard throughout the football season, but I've also heard for Battle of the Band songs that I haven't heard throughout the football season. So that just shows me, that they really do put a lot of effort into making sure that they're giving the fans new music. There are a lot of songs that we do that I just really, really like. I thought that we looked good. I think every year we do a really good job with just the physical presentation, and everybody always wants to know what's Graham's band going to wear for Battle of the Bands. I thought that we looked good. I thought the orchestras looked good. I just enjoyed it. I think what was shocking was I don't think many people expected the Marine Corps band to play. So that was nice and
right.
Unexpected. And I really enjoyed their rendition of one of the Earth, Wind, and Fire songs. So I think that was really nice for people who had an appreciation for that. Again, I'm always going to say that I think that we won. I just thought that I thought that it was really good. I like Southern band, and I do enjoy watching them. And I thought that they did, a good job. I just thought that we were better with our song selection, and I think we got the W.
I couldn't call it. Like, I didn't know who won per se, because Southern did some things that I usually say, like, I go by a couple of standards and rules. And for me, if someone sings in front of the band, just do not put anybody. I hate that. So
I know how you feel about that. Yes.
So when I saw Southern do it, I really thought that they're like one of the last bands on earth that would do anything like that. But they did. And I also say that I don't like people pulling at my heartstrings, or I don't like people pulling at stuff that everyone in the arena is going to clap for house. So anytime that you do gospel or you talk about God, ain't nobody going to boo that, or ain't nobody going like, oh, boo, like, we ain't want to hear that, So, and then, of course, they use the time of the era of what's going on in our days. And I was like, oh, Southern, that. So it's like almost, it was like a gimmick, you know what I mean? So, and then even say some folks is calling it a gimmick for that. So I was really surprised that they did that.
Double Time Entertainment. Our passion is music and promoting HBCU marching bands as well as high school marching bands through high-quality movie videos and photos. We have worked with BET, Yamaha, Ludwig, Honda Motor Company, and been featured on CNN and Lifetime Network's series Bama State Style. We also help and orchestrate Battle of the Bands with marketing and promotions, and also became the official media team for the Queen City Battle of the Bands in Charlotte, North Carolina. Join Double Time Entertainment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and now new on Periscope. Music lovers are noteworthy.
Hello, this is Leonard Holden, Director of Bands at Southwood High School in Shreveport, Louisiana. I've done studies at Jackson State University and a graduate of Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi. I'm also the director of the Shreveport All-Star Band. You are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
the thing about Gremlin to me is like they look tired, or it felt like the energy was not the same. Like, cause I know we're gonna go into the halftime show, but Gremlin always be partying, and Gremlin always be dancing. They always gonna be exciting, and I guess to tip off in the halftime show, their halftime show they partied and they danced for a long time, but that energy was strong. It felt like they didn't keep the energy in the Battle of the Bands to me, and it felt like they were just playing. And they didn't keep, because of course the first intro, the first song, like medley of songs, was hype. Like they came in with that, they were ready. And then it wasn't the same in the middle, but then at the end when they do the GS, y'all get hype for that, boy. So you know
we love
can,
that.
oh yeah. They and I think, did they go to Southern Side during the halftime show? Did they go? I think they went to Southern Side and did the whole GS right at the end.
You're right about that. I think I noticed that. And I think the announcer for our band, who does such a good job, I think that he even made a reference to that. Graham fam everywhere, all over the dome, join in or whatever he said. So, yeah, I think we did do that. I think I kind of liked that. But I will say this. I do feel like the World Fame this season, I feel like they've just been playing with a renewed sense of self-confidence within themselves. And I saw it the week before for the TSU Gremlin game. I always tell people I think that the World Fame is just one of the most, the kids, the students are just really polite and just always very happy to be doing the work, that they're doing. Always all smiles. And I know that Southern, they come in, what is it that they say? It's wartime. I think with Gremlin, I don't necessarily think that they think that it's wartime. I think that it's just like we're going to give the people a good show and what they're looking for. We're just going to have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah, it just seemed like they were having like a really, really good time out there. And I wondered, I said, I wonder if they're taking their cue from the football players. You watch the G-men play. I mean, they really played like they're just having a great time out there, and it's all smiles and giving it to the crowd. So it's just been a different World Fame, I think, this year. Now, I will say this. I grew up in Southwest Louisiana, so it really is all about Zydeco from where I'm from. But, Gremlin has the song that they played, the side piece, and then Southern does The Hole in the Wall, their blues song. So I did find that to be a really nice addition to the Battle of the Band for our older alumni and friends of Gremlin and Southern who kind of like the blues. So I thought that was a nice addition to it. But I'm so curious, what did you think of the halftime shows between both of the bands? Who do you think got the W for the halftime show?
Well, for that one, it's tough because, again, we talked about traditions. And Gremlin just be dancing. I mean, like, the energy is great, but I just, like, there's too much for me when they dance with the dancing girls. So, like, the drill was not bad. No, the drill was okay. The dancing girls, they do their thing. But, like, seeing the band, I don't know, like, who to look at. I don't know to look at the band or the dancing girls. You guys kept dancing in that formation. So I don't like the block band formation that you guys have where you dance at the end for, like, the dance routine. I like something that's a little bit more closer together to actually see the dancing. Now, as far as, like, what Southern did on their drill, that is probably my favorite drill of the year, the Star Drill. They did it on us in the Boombox Classic, and I really, really like that drill. We had a good drill, too, now, because, Jackson State's a great drilling band, too. But that drill is so intricate. I felt like that drill, like, they had the better drill. Gremlin, however, had, of course, a lot of energy, and they had a good time. And then I like the GSU and going to their side, southern side of the field to do the GSU. But I like Southern's announcer because he was like more mellow, and I guess he had a good microphone. But their dance routine, it was just too short.
Okay.
And then both bands did the mannequin challenge. So that kind of evened it out because I still said that was the wow factor just from last week. So I guess we still got one more week where that's not going to get old. But just on that drill, I felt like Southern, that drill, that's just one of my favorite drills.
I will agree. They did a really good job with it. I've seen that drill before, no shade, and they always do a really good job with it. I agree.
So that's what I thought. So what did you think about the halftime show?
So again, people were texting me and sending me messages on Facebook, and I told each of them, like, nope, I can't say anything until I see both in its entirety, because gone are the days of the old BET. Remember when BET would show the entire halftime show, and so, you'd be able to give a really good and informed opinion of what you saw. And with this NBC, and even when it was on regular NBC, it seems like every year you get shorter and shorter clips of the Bayou Classic halftime show. So at first I couldn't really tell. I didn't really know what to make of it. But seeing it in its entirety, I really liked our drill. I haven't been to every football game, but that drill was new to me that we did, and I thought that it looked really good. I guess I'm just accustomed to the dancing, but my Southern friends said all the time, they're like, well, why does the band dance at the same time? Dancers are dancing. And I always tell them, like, it's not like the band is doing like a full dance routine. They just have a little 1-2 step that they may do, or rocking to the side. And I just think that that's just traditionally Grambling.
Right.
Very rarely do they just stand in one place and play the song and play the instruments and so forth. So that doesn't bother me, because that's just the way it's always been. Oh, and when we had the flags, you would have really been like, oh, what am I looking at? The flags, the band, the dancers. But I thought that it was a really good show. But like I said, I had seen them the week before in Houston against TSU. And I have a god sister who's in the band, and I saw her right after halftime, and so she said, we have something really special for Bayou Classic. And so I just thought that it lived up to the hype of what they thought that it was going to be. With Southern University, I always enjoy hearing them. I've always enjoyed hearing them, even growing up. You can't talk about Southern University and not mention the legacy of Dr. Isaac Greggs, and you can still see a lot of his influences with the band. And so I think that they always do a good job. I think that the people of New Orleans always show them love, and I think that whenever Southern's band comes to New Orleans, I think that they just genuinely have the love of the folks in New Orleans. And I always feel like they're going to be the band that's favored, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for Grambling, we just prepare for that, and we understand that. But in the back of our minds, we always feel like, if the Bayou Classic ever had to move to Shreveport, it'd be a different story, right? For whatever reason, if it ever moved to Shreveport or North Louisiana or Grambling, would be a different story, because the folks in Shreveport and Monroe and North Louisiana just really have that same Dallas, same love for the world fame that the folks in New Orleans have. So sometimes it's bittersweet, because when my nephew was in Grambling's band, of course we went to the Battle of the Bands every year, and growing up we went. And then after he graduated, I remember I didn't go that one. Well, I wasn't going to go that one year, but I remembered just how hard it can be for Grambling coming into New Orleans, because Southern is the band that's favored, and it's a lot of times by the folks in New Orleans. So I always tell people, you're going to go to Bayou Classic, make sure that you go to the Battle of the Bands, because the world fame, we're coming from, 6 hours away. So
Right.
they could definitely appreciate having a fan base. Bayou Classic, it was just as special as last year's, especially coming off from rumors of there doesn't need to be a Bayou Classic anymore. Grambling should be replaced, and that whole thing that there were certain people who were saying, and a lot of really good Southern alumni who were like, of course not. Can't be a Battle of the Bands or a Bayou Classic game without Grambling State University. So,
Right.
it's kind of nice to see that has died down. And it was really nice to see, 67,000 people come out for 2 years in a row of really, really good attendance for the Bayou Classic that I think was just perfect. But you know what the sad part about this is, the shootings that happened in the French Quarter, and a lot of times people associate that, right, with the Bayou Classic. Well, look at what the Bayou Classic did. And, I'm on people's Facebook pages who really don't know, who didn't go to either university or SWAC University, saying, no, that's not the people, that's not us. That may be people who are coming into the city who don't go to any of the Bayou Classic events. They just come into the city to hang out on Bourbon and say, oh, I'm going to the Classic. No, you went to New Orleans. You didn't, right? You didn't come to Bayou Classic. You didn't support any of the events. So I think we were all on pins and needles, just hoping and waiting to find out, that it wasn't any of our kids, but being really saddened to learn that it was gifted tattoo artists who was just trying to enjoy bourbon, I guess, and these senseless acts happened.
Hi, everyone. This is Joe Beer, the Phantom Podcaster and owner and founder of the Marching Podcast. I want to tell you guys about this website, theedge1pro.com. That's DAEDGE1pro.com. This is the website of my man Garrett Edgerson, the media director for Southern University's Human Jukebox. If you want to see great bands and a good idea of the HBCU experience, log into theedge1pro.com. Garrett has photos and videos of events on campus, along with parades of bands of all levels. So check out the Edge One Productions and theedge1pro.com.
This is Natalie Kennedy Beard, Spelman College alumni, class of 1971. You're listening to the 90 Degree Show on the Marching Podcast Network.
I love the Bayou Classic, but I remember at one point I thought, could we do this somewhere else? Because I was at the Classic when it came to Houston after Katrina, and it was a really good experience. It was a really good experience. So I'd be okay with us thinking about experimenting with it being somewhere else, especially if it has to come with the violence that happened.
Yeah, I didn't even know about things that went on outside of the Bayou Classic, but I'm sure as with everything, they always equate it with the actual people in town for the event. The official attendance looks, and I said it earlier, it looks like 67,845 on the previous recording. So, yeah, that's actually good, and those numbers are returning. Like you said, it was in Houston after those Katrina years, but now it's getting back to the point where people are attending again.
And I will tell you something else that seems to be interesting and that's happening, and I think it's something that we should be watching. I am a regular in the SWAC Lounge on Facebook, and there are times when I feel like, okay, I really need to take a step back from the SWAC Lounge because I don't know these people, and I'm talking a lot of trash, and I'm probably never going to meet these people again. One of the many things that I think came out of this is this idea of how do we recruit our football players. And we have a quarterback who's just so special to us, as well as a few other football players who were recruited from Division I schools. I've read a few people who said this showing at Bayou Classic may give young men who would otherwise commit, now you're not going to get them all, who would otherwise commit to the Ole Miss or the LSU, may give them a second look at HBCUs, because of course everyone knows that our quarterback came from Ole Miss, had a freak accident with his ankle, and he was recruited by our head football coach, and he came over to Grambling as well as a few other D1 recruits. And there was a really spirited debate about him and his talents and how good he is. And then there were a couple of people from a certain university that I will not name who basically said that, well, he's not swag. He is not one of our kids. And there were so many people from other universities, wow, folks from your university, from Southern University, who said, absolutely, he is swag, right? Mm-hmm. Like, these kids should be coming and playing at our universities. And so I just wonder if we're going to be seeing a new way of recruiting, a new way to think about recruitment. Because I think anybody who watched the game on Saturday, if you're just really honest, then you know that there is really something special about the G-men and the caliber of football that we're playing. So I think that'll be something really interesting to kind of study and watch in the next couple of years, and recruiting classes and how HBCU coaches are looking at recruiting for their next incoming class.
Yeah, you bring up something that's really, really close to my mind. I always struggle with the whole thing of seeing these massive, talented, young black kids, and they go play at these major universities because they're trying to go to the next level, as they say. They're trying to get to the exposure to, and right, that is the easier pipeline to be in the NFL but what you're giving up as well, like your college experience. I guess, you're not going to college then for college, you're going to go to the next level. Well, so many of those guys then return to go to college. So why not go to college while you going to college? But, that's so tough. And then how they've changed with my whole joke earlier about Eddie Robinson being the Division I winner and wins, because if they've changed the whole system with the FBS now and the FCS, and have Bobby Bowden listed as the most, and the whole Joe Paterno thing, like he made sure he got that one past Eddie Robinson, and then all the whole scandal comes out,
Right.
That's I struggle with that still. I don't even know how to put it, because my little cousin plays for USM, plays receiver for them, and of course the family wanted him to go to Jackson State or go to somewhere like that, but of course he says, hey, I want to go to see if I could act how good I am at the next level, so that's where he went. So you bring up an interesting point. Hopefully we can have more of these kids, especially in light of all of this going on. Maybe some households or some people somewhere can say, hey, during this climate of supporting our own businesses and schools and stuff, we actually can keep some of our athletes here in some of these schools to actually play, because that's going to give the notoriety to that school. That's going to help that school if you have a huge recruit doing good things, like just how Steve McNair did for Alcorn. So so hopefully we can have someone come in there and help out in that way. In talking to some of the band members, you were talking to some of the band members about the show. Did you want to elaborate some on that?
I do. As I stated earlier, my god sister, Joasia Wilson, she's from near my hometown. She's from Franklin, Louisiana, and she's a senior in the world famed this year section leader, alto sax player, kind of got her to, after halftime, I was like, can you just meet for a few minutes for family time? And so she was like, yeah. She said, I'll pretend like I got them sick, and then I can come out and see you guys. And so we got a chance to visit for a really good little while. Some of my co-workers were walking by in the dome, and so she got a chance to talk to them and take pictures, and they were like, so what's going to happen, next week for Bayou Classic? And so she said, well, we've been working on it, and we have a really, really nice show planned. And I'm 41, so this mannequin challenge, I was kind of late to the party on that one. And so, when she mentioned it, so she was like, we're going to do the mannequin challenge. And I was like, I said, that's good. But I'm thinking to myself, like, what in the world is that, I'm like, what in the world is that? But I'm like, I'm sure it's going to be good. And so she was very excited about it. And so she was like, yeah, we've really been working hard on it, and we're excited about it. And so just to see everything that she mentioned and see it come to life for halftime, I was just really excited about that. So I think for the SWAC championship, I'm probably going to be seeing that mannequin challenge again. I hope that it makes it back for its trip to Houston, and yeah, I'm hoping we can take it to Atlanta as well on the 17th. We'll see.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that it's going to happen. Alcorn did it last week against us. So that was,
really?
That was the first time. Yeah, it was the first time I saw it. And I think Florida A&M did it in the Florida Classic against Bethune-Cookman. They did it as well. So It was cool to see you guys do it, and it was cool to see both bands do it because I like it. Mm-hmm. But yes, since you're in Houston and you appreciate football and everything, you should Google Jerry Jones. Actually, he actually does one. And it's funny because when you see him, the brother's a little bit old, so he can't really keep himself still. There's folks, so like he's shaking, like you actually see Jerry kind of shaking, and it's like, he's not that good. Wow. Yeah, so you have to check that out. But yeah, I caught on to that. I think maybe last week, and I was new to the party too myself, so. And I've already heard people say that it's starting to get old already. So it's just like, wow, I'm trying to catch on for as long as I can here. But,
I know. Well, you just helped me because you gave me new information. See, I was already at work today, I was saying that we're the only band that did the mannequin challenge, and suddenly, no, we weren't. Okay, that's good to know. I have to take that back.
So is anything else in closing that you wanted to say in the podcast?
First, I just want to thank you for having me on. This is the second time, and I've just immensely enjoyed the show. And I want to thank you so much for what you're doing, because I think that this is just important work, and anytime that we can bring awareness to the amazing work of HBCU bands, always appreciate what you do. And so I thank you for your contribution so that a new generation of folks who may not have been raised up on HBCU bands the way that we have could have an appreciation for it. So I'm always telling people about you, always telling folks about the show. Can't wait to tell them about this show. And just keep doing what you're doing. It's just really good for HBCUs and really good for our bands. And one of the things that I want to say, I know that the band director from Alabama A&M is a listener and a friend of yours.
Yeah.
I have to say, Alabama A&M it's my second favorite band to watch. And I don't know him. I don't know anyone who graduated from Alabama A&M, but he just does a great job. Every time I see their band on videos, they sound good, they look good. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing really, really well. Carlton Wright. He's the bruz. He's a Q. He's the old make man.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yes. Welcome back. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to pub your business using our platform. We'll play your commercial, we'll post your website on our blog, and we'll help send out your information through social media. So contact us so we can help build your business.
Hi, This is Avery McFadden, Jackson State University graduate, Sonic Boom, Trump Funk Found 1997. You are listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Leonard Holden, Director of Bands at Southwood High School in Shreveport, Louisiana. I've done studies at Jackson State University and a graduate of Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi. I'm also the director of the Shreveport All-Star Band. You are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
This is Natalie Kennedy Beard, Spelman College alumni, class of 1971. You're listening to the 90 Degree Show on the Marching Podcast Network.
We've come to the end of our podcast. Check out the website and donate what's in your heart to themarchingpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Thanks to you for listening, and remember, the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. See you next time.